Welcome to the Stray Pointers podcast, where seemingly ordinary people join us for extraordinary discussions. You're watching Season 3, Episode 10 of the Stray Pointers podcast. This episode was recorded on October 20th, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Lawless. For more information about the show, including the show notes for this episode, please visit straypointers.com. Tonight, we have returning to the show horror novelist Angela Sylvaine. Angela, welcome back to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
So this is your fourth appearance on the show, but this is the first time that we've actually published it with video when you've been on as a guest. So
Nice.
there'll be a little bit of recap from the previous shows because we've got a little bit of an extended audience now.
Sounds
One
great.
of the things I wanted to do is in our last Halloween episode a year ago, something happened while we were talking that the listeners, we described it to them, but I recorded the video for that, so I clipped that out. I'd just like to show that here if I could for a second.
Well, and all those proof is usually, you can interpret it how you will when it comes to these supernatural stories, right?
Yep.
It's not always so black and white. So
That's right. So, Angela, is there anything we didn't cover tonight that you'd like to talk about? Oh, did you see that?
yeah, okay, for the listeners, one of my books behind me just randomly fell off the shelf. So
What's the title?
that was actually Chopping Spree. Yeah. Chopping Spree just tumbled right off my shelf while we were talking.
See,
And
nobody's gonna believe this because they can't
I
see
know,
it.
while I was casting doubt on the proof of paranormal activity, something said, listen, skeptic, I'm going to show you.
Yep.
And maybe we should let this paranormal being have the last word. I don't have anything else.
Well, if they do, I'm going to edit it out. So let them get their own podcast.
Yeah, come on, be respectful.
Okay, so that clip that we just saw, that was unrehearsed. I don't know unless Angela's pulling something on me.
No,
So other than the massive AWS outage that has hit the country today, I don't. We'll have to see throughout the episode if any strange things happen.
that's right. We are inviting any,
No,
supernatural spirit to
no, I'm not.
manifest through me, just me, not
There
you.
you go. There you go.
If they'd like to make their presence known, please go ahead.
Okay, so let's talk about your horror novels. You've got three major ones under your belt now, correct?
I do, yeah.
And a fourth one on the way in 2026. So let's talk about the first one. Let's talk about Frostbite. What is the story of Frostbite? What's Frostbite about?
So Frostbite is a sci-fi horror comedy, and I would compare it to sort of like if you're familiar with Gremlins or Critters meets The Thing, is sort of how I would describe it. And it's about a small North Dakota town in the middle of winter that gets hit by a meteor, which is carrying alien worms that infect the hibernating prairie dogs, and they rise and attack. And Raylene, the main character right here, and her best friend Nate have to essentially save their small town from the creatures and everyone they infect, as well as a doomsday cult. So it's like a creature feature with heart, with like North Dakota heart.
Okay. Now this was published in October it was published in October 2023.
That's right, yeah.
And this is through a small press?
Yeah, Dark Matter Inc. is the press. So they're what I would describe as like an independent press. So you've got the big five, and then you've got sort of a middle range of independent presses, and you can also self-publish. Those are all kind of all the ways you could get your book out there.
So I'm curious, Why is it that you went the small press route versus publish on demand through Amazon, self-publishing, that sort of thing?
Well, first, it's a lot of work. So, self-publishing, you have to do literally everything yourself. You need to, find your cover artist and pay for that, and find an editor, pay for that, do all that work of publishing your book and formatting it, and do all the marketing yourself. And that is just not what I want to spend my time doing. I want to write, you know? I want to spend
Hmm.
my time writing. So by like pitching to a small press who has more expertise in that, then they can kind of do that work and I can focus on writing. So it's kind of a win-win, I think. And the other nice thing about it is with a small press, they pay for the editing and the cover and all of that stuff. But then when the book is published, they also get part of the royalties. So that's kind of part of the deal is you're sort of giving up part of your profits to them because of all the investment that they put into the book.
Now, do they own rights to this in perpetuity?
No, I still am the copyright holder. They just hold like a certain fixed period of time rights. So for my particular contract, it's 5 years. But every publisher will differ. And like if anyone out there is looking at potentially writing, it's really good to understand how contracts work because you really never want to sign away your rights indefinitely. You always kind of want a time limit on that.
Did you have to negotiate that 5 years? Is that a magic number for you at all?
No, that's pretty standard. So I didn't, but there's other things I did negotiate. So, for example, I negotiated getting my foreign rights back so that if I ever wanted to sell the book to be published in a foreign language, which one of my other books is,
Hmm.
then I can work directly with that publisher and just do that. But some publishers like to keep foreign rights and then sell them themselves. And then you would still get royalties from that, but it's generally more lucrative if you can kind of take them out of that equation. So that's an example of a something I negotiated as part of my contract was for me to own foreign rights.
Okay. So I saw there's a prominent science fiction magazine called Locus that is
Yeah,
known for its reviews. I saw that after Frostbite had been published, uh, Alex Brown had reviewed in Locus your book, your first book, and he gave it a pretty good review. There was he had some debate on whether or not this. He seemed to think this should have been a young adults novel, I believe, and there was he had some
yeah.
internal some commentary on whether or not whether or not some of the gore was over the top and that sort of thing. And we've talked about that on a previous show. I won't belabor that. But first of all, being reviewed in Locus was a pretty big deal.
It
Uh,
was. Yeah, I was very excited.
what was the overall reception of Frostbite of the first book?
It was really good. Honestly, I wasn't sure what to expect because it's a little wacky. As you
Hmm.
know from the description, it's kind of a wacky premise. Um, but it seems to have really resonated with readers. So even though it's a wacky premise, like I said, it has heart. So for
Hmm.
example, the main character, Raylene, is also dealing with being a caregiver for her mother who has dementia. And so, in the context of this wacky happenings in this town and the creatures and everything else, you have someone who's dealing with something that is very real to what all of us deal with every day, right? Which is
Hmm.
like aging parents and illness in our families and all of those kinds of things. So, I think that part particularly is what I hear from readers about. Is how much they appreciate kind of the characters, the realness of the characters in this silly context. So yeah, the reception's been really good.
Okay, now in this book you have a playlist, an audio playlist.
Yeah, I do. This one has a 90s alternative playlist, basically,
Hmm.
which, by the way, you can get on Spotify. It's linked on my website and everything, so you can download it for free. But I'm just a big fan of music. Music is very important to me, and particularly, I think with something like this book takes place in the 90s.
Hmm.
I think music is a great way to really connect with nostalgia. of like a time and place. So what I hope is that that playlist kind of takes people back and puts them there, if they lived through that, and if not, for younger readers, it gives them kind of a sense of that time and place. So yeah, I really love doing playlists to go along with my books.
So in his review, Alex Brown compared your story to The Faculty or Tremors.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
in online reviews, I have seen it compared to John Carpenter's The Thing.
yep,
So something that I didn't note until one of the last times we talked was that everybody who's reviewing this seems to compare this to film as opposed
yeah,
to other books.
that's
Um,
true. Yeah.
do you write with a kind of a film version in mind?
Yeah, I guess I would say the way I picture things in my mind is very cinematic. So that's just kind of how it comes out on the page. And I've thought about why that might be. I think perhaps because I came to writing later. So, I started writing like in my early 30s. And so, even though I'm a very big reader, I also had grown up and into adulthood watching horror movies. And
Hmm.
so I think when I tell that kind of story, that's just kind of how it manifests on the page. It's very like cinematic, which hopefully means maybe someone would be interested in producing it someday.
Would you do the screenplay?
I'd like to try, although I think it's rare for beginning writers to be offered that opportunity, to be honest with you.
Okay.
The studio wants to buy your work. They generally, if you're like, not an established screenwriter,
Hmm.
would probably get someone to do it, to like adapt it for you just because they want someone with experience that they trust. But I would definitely like to learn how to write screenplays.
Okay. Was there anything in particular you learned from the first book experience?
I mean, I think probably the main thing I learned, because it was my kind of my first novel that was contracted through a publisher and had deadlines. So, when you're coming up in writing and learning your craft, you can set your own deadlines and sort of keep yourself to your own schedule, whatever that may be. But when you have a contract, you really are tied into that. And so what I learned was to be a better planner. You really have to plot things out and have a plan where your story's going to go. You can't just kind of roll with it.
Hmm.
So that's probably the biggest thing I learned was how to be a little bit more of an organized writer, I would say.
Okay. So this isn't your full-time gig though, right?
It is not. Nope. I have a full-time day job, because sadly, being a writer in most cases does not pay very well, but we do it because we love it.
So what does this do to your the time outside of your 8 to 5 job then that would, I would consider private time, leisure time, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I usually write on weekends quite a bit in big chunks on Saturdays and Sundays. And I might also pepper some things in evenings during the week. Um, but the other thing I have to balance with that is part of being a writer isn't all writing words. It's also kind of like marketing and all the other stuff that comes along with kind of almost being like a small business.
Hmm. Hmm.
So all that I have to kind of pepper into that time as well. So yeah, luckily I enjoy doing it. So it's almost like a, second job slash hobby that I do in my free time.
Okay. So your second book came out about 7 months later, Dead Spot, Stories of Lost Girls. And this was a collection of your own short stories, yes?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I actually, before I ever published a novel, I kind of cut my teeth writing a lot of short work. So I have far more short stories and like poetry under my belt. I think I have about 60 publications now in various magazines and anthologies and podcasts and things like that.
Hmm.
So I had like accrued quite a big backlog of stories, that I was able to gather into a collection.
And what's the reception been like for that book?
Was really good. Short story collections generally don't sell as well as novels and novellas, just to like the general public. But it's very critically acclaimed. So it was actually nominated for what's called the Bram Stoker Award. So that's the premier award for horror writers, which I'm
Hmm.
super proud of. So yeah, it has very much critical acclaim, but less sales than the other books, just, by nature of what it is, essentially.
Okay. Okay. So your third book was, you caught me off guard the first time we were talking about this book because it was in the, yeah, you knew what it was going to be called, but I didn't at the time. Um, this was a book called, I can't even say it, Chopping Spree.
That's all right. A
And
little bit of a pun.
and and this is about, this book is set when this is different than, this is not the same locale or characters from Frostbite, correct?
That's right. Yeah. This one is set in Minnesota. I grew up in North Dakota, by the way, so I play a fair amount around in that area, but this
Mhm.
one is set in Minnesota in a little town called Eden Hills, which is made up. Um, and the town is famous for two things: a 80s themed mall and mysterious disappearances of teens. And the main character, Penny, works at the mall, and she's staying late one night to kind of like party with her coworkers after hours. And they end up trapped in the closed mall with a masked killer. And in the process of kind of confronting that, they're also going to kind of uncover some dirty town secrets.
Okay. Now you said 80s themed. Is this set in the 80s?
No, it's set in modern times,
Okay.
but essentially the mall is sort of like an homage to the glory days of malls.
Okay. 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 Um, I hadn't noticed this when we talked about it the first time, and I think I'm remembering this correctly, but there's an HBO series based on a video game called The Last of Us.
Oh yeah, uh-huh.
Have you seen any of these episodes?
I have, yeah.
I believe there's one that takes place in an old rundown mall, if I'm
I
remembering
think you're right.
correctly.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back and I think you're right. There's also a if for those who watched Netflix, there's a series called Fear Street.
Okay.
And there's something called, I think there's like a Fear Street 1984, and there's a Fear Street Prom Queen. There's a couple of different ones, and those vibes are very much like Chopping Spree.
Where do you think, I'm not trying to I'm not trying to insinuate that any of you have taken intellectual property from each other, but there's obviously been something inspirational about that setting to kind of foster these kind of stories. What do you think that is?
Um, I mean, I do think time-wise, nostalgia's popular, right? So first of all, referencing the 80s is definitely popular. As someone who grew up then, I can see why, right? Like we like to feel nostalgia and look back at things. For me personally, I like referencing that time because and I think it works particularly well with horror because I think of the 80s as this like bubblegum pop neon time period,
Hmm.
but with like a dark underbelly, right? There was a lot of bad things going on in the 80s too, like Iran-Contra and the AIDS crisis and all this other stuff. So from a storytelling perspective, it works nicely. It's like something is shiny and beautiful on the surface, but underneath there's more to it. And that's kind of like how Chopping Spree is. It's like you have this, beautiful mall that is supposed to be this kind of bastion for this small town
Hmm.
and bring dollars there and yay capitalism. But underneath it, you have kind of exploring kind of the dangers of capitalism and this town's dirty secrets and stuff. So I think it works kind of nicely too, just as like a storytelling tool.
Okay. What was the reception like for this book?
This one is actually probably my most popular. People are very into slashers. there's like a kind of a resurgence of slashers going on right now,
Mm-hmm.
which is the specific horror genre of basically like a masked killer. So this one tends to get a lot of reads around Halloween, and there's kind of a push on social media called hashtags slasher summer. So I tend to get a lot of reads around that time period because people have like an appetite for slashers. And this is also a novella, so it's a little shorter and like a fun, quick read.
Okay. Now this particular book has a there's a Spanish language edition of this one as well, is there not?
Yeah, that's right. It's called Ramat Fanal.
How did that come about?
So the publisher actually just reached out to me and asked if I would consider publishing it and like giving up foreign rights to that other publisher, which was super exciting. They had read the English version, and it's a publisher out of Spain called Dimensiones Occultas that has done some other really great work. So, yeah, I think they just came across it in its English version and reached out to me to see if it would be available.
Now what doors does that open for you?
Well, it's basically expanded readership because I'm reaching people I never would normally.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, a lot of those people read in English too, you know?
Okay.
And so not only does it open up readership of those reading in the Spanish language, but most likely they're at least bilingual. And so they may pick up more of my other works as well, which is cool.
Okay. Okay. Now you have another book coming out. It's scheduled for this March, is that correct? This March of
Yeah, that's right.
2026.
Hmm.
Tell us about that.
So that one's called Cold Snap, and it's actually the sequel to Frostbite, the one that with the meteor. And it takes place after the events of book one, where the our two heroes, basically the best friends, are kind of processing what happened in book one, um, and thinking they, you know, kind of like won against these alien worms. But
Mm-hmm.
it turns out there's another half of the meteor that has landed just north of them in Canada. Um, and they end up kind of making a journey up north across the border during spring break. So this comes from my real life experiences growing up in North Dakota. You didn't really go to like Florida or somewhere warm for spring break because it's too far away and too expensive. What we would do is actually just drive across the border because at that time Canada's drinking age was 18. And I think it still is actually, it still is in Manitoba. So it's very realistic for these college-aged people to just go into Canada for spring break. So it's kind of a funny, cold spring break setting with another appearance of the meteor and kind of like a government covert op to cover it up.
Okay. Are there Canadian prairie dogs in this one?
No, but there are other Canadian animals. There's like, moose and bison and beavers. So
Okay.
lots of Canadian animals making an appearance.
Okay. Okay. So this is you haven't referred to this as a trilogy before. You've said this was a three-part series when we talked about it
Yeah,
a while
that's
ago.
kind of the intention. I have ideas how to wrap it up
Hmm.
in a third book, but I haven't written that book. So we'll see if the publisher's interested in it or what I write next, if that ends up coming to fruition.
Do you have a name for the overall set?
No, probably at this point I would probably just call it the Frostbite series.
Okay.
But maybe if it comes to fruition, I'll think of something more interesting.
Okay. Okay. Do you have other books on the horizon or other written works on the horizon?
I do, yeah. I always have books cooking. So the one I'm working on now that I'm hoping will be the next thing I try to find a publisher for is sort of like the Stepford Wives meets Companion. If you've seen that movie that just came out this year, it's sort of a like robot versions of perfect wives that get their vengeance on behalf of women. So
Okay.
very like feminist.
I'm, yeah,
Um,
I'm not, this isn't sounding like a book that I would want to read right away. So,
as long as you're not one of the bad ones, Jim,
oh,
you don't have
it's not,
anything to worry about.
I get it. They're only going to hurt the bad ones then.
Yeah, like
Okay.
incels and stuff like that. That's their target. So you're gonna be fine.
Man. Okay.
But
Do
yeah, I'm working on that,
you have a
and
working title for that one?
I think it's gonna be called Trad Machina. Because you might have heard of the term trad wife. Um, but in this case, it's a machine, and it's like an ex machina reference if you're
Okay.
familiar with that. So yeah,
Yep.
trad
Yep.
machina.
Okay.
And I also have some short works coming out. I think my next one is this December. I have a little essay coming out in a book called Poisoned Soup for the Macabre. So it's like a play on Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Mhm.
Horror version that's kind of about my horror origin story. When did I start reading horror? Um,
Is
and
this
so that
autobiographical?
yeah, yep. So
Okay.
that one's actually an essay rather than like a fiction piece,
Okay.
and that'll come out in December. So that's probably my next short thing.
And where will that appear?
It'll be in this book called, okay, I want to make sure I get the title right. I think I said it right. Poisoned Soup for the Macabre.
Okay. 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 So in trying to in trying to produce produce these works regularly, what sort of a cadence do you set for yourself? Is there a set? I'm going to write X number of hours per week. I'm going to. I mean, how do you how do you target the individual works that you have? Do you just decide I'm going to write a short story versus I'm going to write something longer? How does that work?
Yeah, kind of. I have kind of a schedule. So depending on what I have going on and if I have anything contracted that I need to work on.
Hmm.
So for example, I just turned in a version of Cold Snap to my editor.
Hmm.
So now I have a break where I don't need to work on that book. So right now I'm working on the other book, but also I have sort of a schedule of short stories that I know have deadlines coming up, like short story calls I have my eye on. And so I have kind of a list of stories I want to work on that are sort of optional. Like hopefully I'll get to them, but it's up to me to hold myself accountable. And as a general rule of thumb, I try to write probably like 5,000 words a week. Particularly if I'm working on a book, then I'll try to push myself toward that. But sometimes I don't hit it.
Do you force yourself to alternate between writing, marketing, that sort of thing, so that you
Yeah,
get certain percentages of each week or each month or something?
yeah, I try to. And depending on what's going on, sometimes I have to do more of one or the other. So, for example, once we get closer to Cold Snap coming out, I'll need to kind of shift a little more to marketing mode. Like I'll be spending a lot more time contacting ARC readers to see if they want to read it early and write a review, and contacting bookstores to see if they want to carry it, and things like that. Contacting podcasts like yourself to see, yeah, hey, would you like to have me as a guest so I can come talk about it? So once we get closer to release, I'll spend probably more time doing that and a little less time writing.
Hmm.
But then after it comes out, I'll have a bit of a break and then I'll write a little more again.
So, so I just pulled a copy of one of your books here, your first book. I see that it has an ISBN.
Yep.
I'm
Hmm.
not sure if this is coming up backwards here, but it's got an ISBN. So these appearing in bookstores? Do you?
Uh-huh. Yep. So any bookstore can order any of these. Um, and the way you do that, you have to be with a distributor. So For example, if you self-publish or you publish only on Amazon,
Hmm.
generally bookstores won't carry you. They're not going to order books from Amazon at full price and put them in their store.
Okay.
You have to have your books carried with a distributor. The one that we use is called Ingram, which is a very popular one.
Hmm.
So when Ingram carries a book, they're going to have it at, let's say, 50% of the cover price. So bookstores can order it from them and carry it and make a profit. So in order to sell to bookstores, you have to also be carried with a distributor.
Okay. Have you, well, have you walked into a bookstore and seen your book on the shelves?
I have, yeah, yeah,
I mean, not one where you might be doing a speaking engagement that might be prepping for that, but
yeah.
as a sort of surprise.
I have, yeah. And it's usually like maybe not me walking into the bookstore, but like someone will send me a picture or something.
Hmm.
Like across the country, there's a little store in New England, and I'll have a friend on vacation and they'll say, "Hey, look, they have your book here," kind of a thing.
Oh, very cool.
Um, so yeah, it's usually bookstores that are more familiar with the press, like they probably order a lot of dark matter books, or maybe, they might have been on my list I reached out to say, hey, this book is coming out. Would you consider carrying it? So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay. So you've been at this for a couple years now, and you've been doing book readings and public appearances, and you've got you've got pretty prominent social media presences. What are some fan stories that you can share? Have you met any interesting fans?
I have. I don't really feel like I have any fan horror stories at all. So that's nice.
That's
I've not had any
that's
like,
kind of ironic.
I know, right?
Hmm.
You would think I'd be bringing that on to myself, but
Yep.
no, all my fan stories are good. Like, I still sort of think it's amazing when I meet people I don't know at all. They're not friends or family or someone that knows me through someone else,
Hmm.
just a random stranger who comes up and says, "Oh, I read your book and I loved it," is still kind of baffling to me, honestly. It's very cool. I can think of one recently where I had someone who followed me on social media and
Hmm.
they saw I was doing a book signing here in my hometown, which is in Colorado, and they live in Wyoming and they drove down and came to the signing
Very
and
nice.
said like, "Hi, I'm here. I'm gonna like have you sign my book." So that was pretty cool to know someone would, like drive an hour to come see me.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. So is there anything you'd like to talk about that we haven't covered tonight?
I don't think so. That's a lot. We covered like my whole catalog basically.
So catalog so far.
Yeah, so far.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you being on the show again.
I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Great. Have a good one.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you all for watching today's show. Let's do this again soon. Take care.